think any of this wonkiness is going to deal with this dark psychic force of the collectivized hatred that this president is bringing up in this country, then I'm afraid that the Democrats are going to see some very dark days.
Hey, my fellow dark psychic force individuals, welcome to the new America as we are the purveyors of darkness. Couldn't help but thinking about Darth Vader. But can you just imagine with me for a moment? We'll get to Terry Kemple in just a second. I can't get over this. Can you imagine a national debate between Donald Trump and Marianne Williamson? That's this young lady's name. As she's arguing about the get rid of wonkiness and to call the dark force, and that's her campaign platform. I mean, now there's some dark forces out there, okay? There's no doubt about that. There, powers and, us that are Christ followers know that our battle's not with flesh and blood, but principalities. I get all that. But the idea that, and by the way, CNN last night did a horrible job with the debate in the area of they kept going back to the favorites, the named people. She barely, this was about her only statement that she was able to get in last night. But she's a thoughtful, intelligent, got the solutions. Yeah, this is the recipe for America's future. Well, as I said, you can make that decision, and we'll put together some of the highlights of tonight's commentary as well. But just want to remind you that you are now officially a part of not only MAGNA, for those of you who support the president, but I can't wait, Mike, for the first hat to come out. Dark psychic force. A member of the dark psychic force. I mean, the winner of last night's debate, Donald Trump. Phone lines are open at 877-943-9673. Let's pull the national focus back down to not a Florida focus, but a local focus. Last night, my dear friend of many, many years, Terry Kemple, had an opportunity to travel from his hometown of Brandon, Florida, up to Pasco County. Last night, there was a meeting of the Pasco School Board, and Terry is founder of the Community Issues Forum and has been very, very much keyed into the very important social issues of the day. Terry Kemple, didn't get a chance to really talk to you much last night because we had a hard break, but glad to have you back this afternoon.
Well, Bill, I really appreciate you having me back on. This is such an important issue, and as we discussed last night and you brought up, although we're going to talk about Pasco County, this is universal. There are school districts and other institutions across our country that are being beleaguered with this transgender myth. I can't call it anything else. It's a shame, and it's really scary.
Well, let's do this, Terry Kemple. Phone lines are open. If you got a question or comment at 877-943-9673. Let me put forth what I think, and by the way, for full disclosure, Kurt Browning and I have been friends for, 2 decades, maybe longer. Kurt served as Secretary of State under the Bush administration, came back, and is now head of the Pasco County Schools. Also, he and I also shared life in the Boy Scouts of America. And as I was chairman of Jamboree's warehouse services, all the pools, the tanks, the arrows, all of the things that are bought for the big every 4-year Jamboree. Kurt was on my staff, so consider himself to be a close family friend. We go to the same church, share the same faith, but I have not talked to him about this issue. So let me just say this. Kurt Browning, from what I understand from published reports, he is saying that the policy that was not, this policy was not voted upon by the Pasco County School Board. This was an administrative implemented policy, which I'll get to in a moment. He says that based on federal and state guidelines, they have no choice but to interpret this and to implement this the way that it is. And what sparked all of this, I believe it was at a high school, there is a student that decided to not participate in the world with the gender they were born with. They are declaring themselves as a transgender. And in this case, they were allowed to go into restrooms, dressing areas, et cetera, this individual of the gender that they are aligning or affiliating with. My first question to you, Terry Kemple, do you see that differently? Are there federal or state guidelines that you could see where even though you are dedicated to overturning what's going on, that in some way they have their hands tied to interpret this or to be out of compliance with, education? They get a lot of money in from different areas. What do you see to be the truth here?
So since September of last year, actually, we've had people going to school board meetings trying to open their eyes to the fact that Kurt Browning, and there's nothing personal in this.
Sure.
Everybody makes mistakes. Kurt Browning has been misled to believe that there is some type of federal guideline that requires accommodation for people who don't understand that they're born with either XX or XY chromosomal identity. So the part of the misleading is in the manual that has been used. It's been implemented as a staff procedure. They call it the best practices guide. Our friends at Liberty Counsel call it the worst practices guide. It is full of lies and misstatements, and it's really an indoctrination document as opposed to a document that has any substance in reality. So I'll go, if it's okay, I'll go to the school board meeting last night. We had probably 8 speakers last night. We've been having between probably 8 and 40 one night, most of the time, though, 8 to 15. And we focused last night on trying to point out some of the mischaracterizations and outright lies in the
Best
in this
practices.
guide.
Right.
Yeah. I hate to call it best practice because it's not.
Well, it is. It's just, it doesn't mean that's accurate, but again,
Right.
we're just trying to have a both-sided conversation today for folks to kind of start evaluating
Right.
this.
I understand. And so, in any event, I heard this morning that Superintendent Browning is considering making some changes in the guide. And so I'm going to be in touch with him and ask him if he would meet with me, because I'd like to point out all of the mistakes, all of the errors, all of the misstatements, and all of the lies that are in the guide. And hopefully, once he sees that, he'll come to the realization that they should just throw out the guide. There is absolutely no federal guideline that would force them to do this. Actually, there was a guideline under the Obama administration that was issued in 2016. President Trump, after he was elected, through the Department of Justice and the Department of Education, rescinded the Obama guidance, directive. And also there's a federal judge in Texas who actually, this was prior to the Trump rescission, who enjoined states from enacting the Obama directive, and that has never been overturned. So as it stands right now, federal law says you can't enforce this kind of doctrine. That's what federal law says, and the guidance from the Justice Department and the Department of Education both say the same thing. You can't enforce this kind of indoctrination.
Well, let me also add. I was interested in the source document from Kurt on this, because it's my understanding that, as you have just described it, this has been the process. I could see where there's a misunderstanding way back because it was a move by the Obama administration, but it was rescinded by President Trump. And also, and I know we have the Department of Education here in Florida, which is, even though it's under the administration of Governor DeSantis, I know the legislature has not passed anything mandating that it be handled this way. And I would be very surprised if there's something from the Department of Education that either in the Rick Scott administration or the DeSantis or going back that implements this. And so it seems to me, Terry Kemple, the first step is, could you just please give us the supporting documents of what federal and state guidelines you're working off of that arrives to the conclusion that you've had? I mean, your thoughts about that?
Yeah, absolutely, Bill. And they have been unable to produce anything. As a matter of fact, let me say it differently. The administration, and specifically the superintendent and the board attorney who are at every meeting, have been intransigent. They have not yielded an inch on this until this morning when I heard the superintendent may look at changing some of the things in the guide. The board members, because this is not a policy matter, there was not an official vote on a policy. This is called a staff procedure. The board members are kind of between a rock and a hard place because they don't want to step on the superintendent's toes in this, but at the same time, I can see on their faces as we talk and expose the reality of what this is about. At least some of them are inclined in our direction. So, and let me just come back for 1 second. You mentioned Florida Department of Education. We were in communication with Secretary of Education Corcoran's office, asking them about this, and they actually sent something back and said, this is really a local matter. This is not something that we deal with at the state level. So the onus, the responsibility, the ownership for this is at the local level. It's with the Pasco County School District. And because it's an administrative function, it's owned by Superintendent Kurt Browning. And it's really up to him. He could snap his fingers and this would be gone, Bill. And there was really no pressing need to establish this. The school district already had a whatever you want to call it, a methodology, a procedure, a way of work that they dealt with issues like this. But somebody in the administration, and I've got email chains, that came through FOIA requests, email chains of communications between the superintendent and advocates for the LGBT community that show at least partly how this came into being. So there were people who were advocates for this lunacy who influenced the superintendent, and the superintendent agreed with them and moved their process forward.
All right, let's do this. Terry Kemple's going to be holding on. We got to take a hard break. When we come back, more as to what Liberty Counsel may or may not do. I know Terry Kemple doesn't speak directly for them, but are we looking at court action, an injunction, a fact-finding opportunity as to what's the source of these documents? More of the Bill Bunkley Show and the Pasco County School Board's dealings with transgender students coming up next. Here we're back. Bill Bunkley, the Bill Bunkley Show, 877-943-9673. A lot to cover. First, I want to tell our friends that this is the last day for this month, Wednesday, July 31st. And the last day you can register to win a free copy of the Regnery Book of the Month, Soaring to Glory, a Tuskegee Airman's First-Hand Account of World War II by Philip Handelman, as well as the hero who was on my show a couple of 3 weeks ago, Lieutenant Colonel Harry T. Stewart, Jr., who flew 43 combat missions in Italy and in one day shot down 3 German airplanes. That book, 5, will be given away, but you have to register. Today's the last name. To register, you can go to either theanswertampa.com, theanswertampa.com, or theanswersarasota.com. The answer is Sarasota.com. Click on the contest tab and you can enter. My guest is Terry Kemple with the Community Issues Forum talking about a policy for transgender students in the Pasco County school system. And Terry, we got to go real quick, but I wanted to try and cover 3 areas. First of all, one of the folks who have been involved with going to the meetings expressed to me that the treatment of the folks that want to try and make this change, it's been a very abrupt sort of a treatment from Pasco County school officials. Then I also hear from Pasco County school officials that some of the advocates for against this policy have been very extremely vocal, pushy, et cetera, et cetera. How has and I know you've joined in this fight, but it's been going on for several months. How would you characterize the environment of the two sides to be in a calm enough situation to try and deal with truth and come to a rightful resolution?
Bill, you know what the term stonewall means.
Right.
And basically, we've been stonewalled.
Okay.
So I will say that for the first few meetings that I attended, I didn't start getting involved until January. This actually started in September of last year.
Right.
But the meetings that I've been to, the first couple meetings, they were accommodating in allowing however many people showed up to speak, even though they have a set time limit. But then they started really being pushing back against us speaking, so that one meeting they said anybody who's already spoken can't speak. Now they've pushed us to the end of the meeting. They shut the TV off before we speak so that the people in the community can't hear what we say. So I would say that our people, there have been some who have been passionate. I don't think there's anybody who's been ugly or threatening. Some people in their passion speak louder than others. But we've tried to be respectful and factual in what we say, and they have not really offered any response. I mean, basically, they've not offered any response. And I would like to say just real quickly, you said about the documentation. I have submitted a public records request. I just did it a few days ago, so I don't have the information yet for all of the documentation that they received that led to this decision. So hopefully I'll have that. We'll be able to take a closer look at it. I'll have that soon.
Okay, let me ask you this real quick. Terry Kemple, Liberty Counsel, our mutual good friend Matt Staver, a founder of Liberty Counsel. Is Liberty Counsel, are they going to sue them, not sue them? Can they not sue them? What is any legal steps to at least get this to a point where we could, do some depositions to find out, is it true, is it isn't true that they're working off a federal guideline they believe is there or a state guideline? Is Liberty Counsel set to take any legal action?
So the answer to the question is, and I can't speak for Liberty Counsel, but I can tell you that there is preparation being made for legal action to be taken on a couple of the subject matters of this whole issue. Whether they actually pull the trigger or not, I can't say, and if they do, I can't say when.
I understand.
But the best action right now, if you're a parent in Pasco County,
oh yeah,
unless you want your son to have a girl walk into his bathroom or shower, or if you're a parent and you don't want your daughter to have a boy walk into her bathroom or shower, you need to contact Superintendent Kurt Browning and tell him to get rid of the best practices guide. It's as simple as that. If he hears from enough people in Pasco County, it'll be gone. This particular part of the issue will be gone.
All right, real quickly, Terry Kemple, if someone wants to contact you to find out more, what's your phone number?
Let me give you a web address if I could, Bill.
That's fine.
Okay, it's Community Issues Council, COUNCIL.com. I'm sorry, Community Issues Council.org. I always forget.
You just said .com. Is it .com or .org?
I'm sorry, it's .org. CommunityIssuesCouncil.org, and my phone number is 813-368-9077.
All right, Terry, keep me up to date, particularly in terms of documentation and especially the idea of whether there's federal or state documentation. I'm still having an open mind. Sometimes information is communicated to public officials, and it's not accurate. And I don't think with Mr. Browning talking about relying on precedent with federal or state guidelines, if it's not there, I wonder if he wasn't a little misinformed by one of the parties. But Terry Kemple, as always, thanks for being with us, and hope we get this thing resolved, and thank you for your service.
Bill, thank you so much. I appreciate being on the show, and I believe that he was misled.
All right. Thank you, Terry. All right. Going to take a break. I'm going to get into the second hour of our program. Guess what? They found the Church of the Apostles, the original apostles in Bethsaida on the shores of the Sea of Galilee. That and much more the second hour of the Bill Bunkley Show on AM 570, AM 910. Come over and spend the second hour with Bill Bunkley.